This is a comment I received on a video that I did on the guy that crashed into the White House fence with a U-Haul, and the fact that many are saying, inaccurately so, that the major charges were all dropped. And this belief is fueled by comments like this.
He was pretty much looking at prison for the rest of his natural fucking life.
The misconception and the myth here is based on the fact that many think that the crime of threatening the president, vice president, and his family carries a very heavy penalty, but that is not the case. The crime is governed in two federal statutes, 18 U.S.C. 871 that you see behind me and 18 U.S.C. 879. And both of them carry a maximum penalty of 5 years, which is half the maximum penalty of 10 years for the crime of depredation of federal property, which was actually the charge filed. Now, add to it two things. Number one, obviously, every time the government levies charges, they need to prove them in court, and they feel that it might be easier to prove expeditiously and efficiently the crime of depredation than it is to prove the other charges. And number two, this little federal statute right here, which is 18 U.S.C. 3584A. And it governs the difference between consecutive sentences and concurrent sentences. Concurrent sentences run together, basically, if you are sentenced to two terms of 10 and 5 years. At the same time, you only serve 10 years because the 5 years are served inside of the 10. Consecutive sentences are sentences that are tacked to each other. So 10 plus 5 would run you a sentence of 15 years. And this federal statute says that multiple sentences must run concurrently. They cannot run consecutively unless federal law mandates that they run consecutively, or unless the court orders so. So when you have multiple charges that would more than likely run concurrently, one of which is easiest to prove than others, and also happens to carry the heaviest penalty, then it makes sense for the government to focus on one charge only to make the process and the trial more expeditious. So in addition to threatening the president, vice president, or their family, which carries a maximum sentence, as we said, of 5 years, the other charges were assault with a dangerous weapon, which does carry a maximum sentence equal to that of depredation, but it also requires the government to prove that there was intent in assaulting and not just crashing the van. Then there was trespassing federal property, which carries a maximum sentence of 1 year. And finally, reckless driving, which under federal law is just a misdemeanor and carries a maximum sentence of 6 months. So now, number one, it is factually inaccurate and legally impossible for those charges to have carried a sentence that would have kept this person in jail for the rest of his natural life. And number two, it is not true, and again, legally inaccurate to say that all major charges were dropped in comparison to the charge that was actually filed. And with that, class dismissed.